This was the night that changed the Middle East forever. Missiles lit up the skies over Tehran. Air raid sirens echoed across Israeli cities. Explosions were reported near American military bases across the Gulf. And then, something happened that many believed would never occur in modern geopolitics. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was reported killed following coordinated United States and Israeli strikes. Within hours, Iran vowed revenge. Missiles were launched. Drones were deployed. Regional airspace began shutting down. The world watched in shock as one of the most dangerous confrontations in decades unfolded in real time. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched coordinated air and missile strikes across multiple locations inside Iran. According to international media reports including Al Jazeera, Reuters, The Guardian, and PBS NewsHour, the strikes targeted military command centers, missile production facilities, air defense systems, and strategic sites in and around Tehran. Israeli officials described the operation as a necessary preemptive action aimed at neutralizing what they claimed were imminent threats. Within hours of the attacks, large explosions were reported in the Iranian capital. Satellite imagery later indicated significant structural damage at several high-profile security locations. Then came the announcement that sent shockwaves across the globe. Iranian state media confirmed that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei had been killed in the strikes. For more than 3 decades, Khamenei had been the most powerful political and religious authority in Iran. His influence extended across military strategy, foreign policy, and internal governance. His reported death marks one of the most dramatic political assassinations in modern Middle Eastern history. Iranian officials declared the attack an act of war and announced 40 days of national mourning. The Revolutionary Guard vowed severe retaliation and described the strikes as an unforgivable crime. Tehran did not wait long to respond. Within hours, reports began emerging of ballistic missile launches toward Israeli territory and drone attacks aimed at U.S. military bases in the Gulf region. Air defense systems were activated across Israel. Sirens sounded in major cities. Israel declared a nationwide state of emergency. Schools were closed. Public gatherings were banned. Tens of thousands of military reservists were mobilized. Hospitals prepared underground emergency facilities. This was no longer a shadow conflict fought through proxies and covert operations. This was open warfare between regional powers. To understand how the region reached this moment, we need to look at the years of tension that preceded it. Iran and Israel have been locked in a covert confrontation for decades. There have been cyber attacks on infrastructure, assassinations of nuclear scientists, strikes on weapons shipments in Syria, and ongoing proxy conflicts through allied groups in Lebanon and elsewhere. However, tensions sharply escalated in early 2026 amid stalled nuclear negotiations and growing concerns about Iran's missile capabilities. Israeli leadership repeatedly warned that it would not allow Iran to reach advanced military thresholds that it considered unacceptable. Iran, on the other hand, made it clear that any direct attack on its territory would trigger massive retaliation. On February 28, that red line was crossed. The global reaction was immediate and intense. The United Nations Security Council convened in an emergency session. China called for an immediate ceasefire and warned against further escalation. European leaders urged restraint and diplomatic engagement. Airlines began canceling or rerouting flights across the Middle East as airspace closures expanded. Energy markets reacted sharply due to concerns about possible disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global oil shipping route. Nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through that narrow corridor. Any sustained disruption could have serious economic consequences worldwide. Inside Iran, the political situation became even more complex. Under the Iranian political system, the Assembly of Experts is responsible for appointing a new supreme leader. However, selecting leadership during wartime presents enormous challenges. Reports indicate that senior political and military figures are coordinating interim authority. The key question now is whether the next leadership will pursue aggressive escalation or attempt diplomatic engagement. Historically, governments under direct military attack often adopt stronger, more confrontational stances in the short term. Meanwhile, Israel remains on high alert. Its defense systems continue intercepting incoming projectiles, and military officials are preparing for possible multi-front escalation. One major concern is whether Hezbollah in Lebanon could enter the conflict, potentially opening a northern front. Another risk is deeper American involvement if U.S. bases continue to be targeted. Gulf states are also monitoring the situation closely, as any regional spillover could directly impact their security. The question being asked around the world is simple but terrifying. Is this the beginning of a wider war? At this moment, the conflict remains primarily concentrated between Iran, Israel, and U.S. forces in the region. However, the risk of expansion remains high. A naval confrontation in the Strait of Hormuz, increased missile exchanges, or involvement of additional regional actors could dramatically widen the scope of fighting. For now, global powers appear focused on preventing full-scale escalation, but the situation remains fluid and unpredictable. What we are witnessing is one of the most volatile geopolitical moments in recent history. A direct strike on sovereign territory, the reported killing of a sitting supreme leader, missile exchanges across borders, emergency sessions at the United Nations, markets reacting, airspace shutting down, militaries mobilizing. The region stands at a crossroads. As the first wave of strikes and retaliations unfolded, military analysts began asking a deeper question. What exactly are the capabilities on both sides, and how far can this conflict realistically go? Because beyond the headlines and dramatic footage lies a cold strategic calculation. Wars at this level are not only emotional reactions, they are measured decisions based on strength, deterrence, and survival. Iran possesses one of the largest missile arsenals in the Middle East. Over the past 2 decades, it has invested heavily in ballistic missile technology, drone warfare, and asymmetric naval capabilities. Unlike conventional superpowers, Iran's strategy has long relied on deterrence through volume. Large numbers of short and medium-range ballistic missiles give Tehran the ability to overwhelm air defense systems through saturation attacks. Even if interception systems destroy many incoming projectiles, a few can still penetrate. That is the core of Iran's doctrine: persistence and pressure. In addition to ballistic missiles, Iran has significantly expanded its drone program. Low-cost, long-range unmanned aerial vehicles allow Tehran to strike targets indirectly or in waves. Drones are harder to detect, cheaper to produce, and effective for prolonged regional pressure. In recent years, Iran has demonstrated its drone reach across the Middle East, and this conflict has already shown how quickly those assets can be mobilized.